On.
Hello, this tutorial will show you how to do an advanced literature search using the Cinahl database, Cinahl being Cumulative Index to Nursing and Allied Health. It is the best database to start your search in. This tutorial is designed for students doing research or dissertation modules which require a more structured approach to literature searching. So we have a topic that we're going to use, and it's more of a question, which is, can providing hydration at end of life improve patients' comfort? So the first thing I'm going to do is to pull out the key concepts, which I decided are going to be hydration, end of life, and comfort. So I'm going to enter search strings for each of these key concepts. So hydration is going to be a key concept, and I'm going to apply truncation, so I get alternative endings on that word. So this will find hydrates, hydrating, hydration. Now there may be other useful words that I can bring into this search. For example, fluids. The star there, I'll get the singular and the plural. We also have a phrase, oral intake. Now these words might become dissociated, so I'm going to use a proximity operator to stop that happening. So the N1 will find them within a one-word range. It will allow the word order to be reversed. Now the search will probably still work okay if I don't use the proximity operator, but there is a possibility that the words could become detached. We might get oral appearing in the title, intake in the abstract, for example. But don't worry too much about proximity operators. We're not going to select a search field because Cinahl defaults to searching within the citation, which is all the details about the article, such as the title, the abstract, subject headings, etc. So we're going to search for this string in isolation. We're going to look at our initial results. Because these are all to do with hydration, we may well find some other related words that we can reintroduce into the string. So always have a look at your initial results for any other words that jump out, which you can then add into your string. So I'm going to turn my search history on, and it will show this as a first search string. So we can now clear that, go on to the next idea, which is end of life. So here we've got a phrase. And because this is a fixed phrase, I'm going to fix it by putting double quotation marks around it. The word palliative might also be helpful. I'm going to use dying. I could even use an acronym, EOL, which is the abbreviation for end of life. That might be helpful as well. So those are the main words I'm going to use to describe that string, and the or that I'm putting in between these words is simply the instruction to the database for it to find at least one word from that string. It may find more than one, but it's got to find at least one. So we've got a large number of results for that string. We clear that away. And the final string was about providing or improving patients' comfort. So we've got the word comfort. We might think about the opposite, which is discomfort. Maybe other words like distress, or even the word pain. I'm going to add in the word pain. I'm not going to select a search field. Let's go see how many words come back. And I see I've made a mistake here, actually. I have left out the or operator there. So I'm going to redo that search string. Make sure everything's going to work correctly. So that's now in there. And I'm just simply going to remove the previous string, which was incorrect. So I'm now deleting that search string. So it's a good idea to sort of keep your search sort of tidied up as you go along. So I've got results for the 3 concepts here. The next thing is to bring them together. So this is very easy in Cinahl. We just simply tick the boxes, and now we're searching with and. And this is giving an instruction to the database for it to find at least one word or phrase from each search string. So our combined results have diminished dramatically. We've got 214 articles here. Now that's a reasonable amount. We may want more or less, but we'll just go through the rest of the process. So I'm going to clear that string. The first thing I'm going to do now is to try and find out which of these papers are primary research. And the easy way to do that is to do an independent search on the word study, which will always find a very large number of results, as you can see, over 1 million. Clear that, and then we're simply going to link it back with the results of our previous search. This is another AND search. So what will happen is that out of that 214, we've actually lost over half the results. So we're now down to 98 results. And before we start looking at these in detail, the best thing to do would be to limit by date, because normally you don't want to be looking at anything over 10 years old unless there's a good reason for that. Your date range might be narrower than that. It might depend on when last guidance was published, etc. So we're going to look at the last 10 years here. So some of these results are going to be taken away. So we're down to 65. Now, of those 65, I do not want to see anything that I can't read. So there's one that is in Chinese. So I'm just going to limit the English language. So that's taken one away. The other thing I can do, although treat with this with slight caution, I can limit the source type to academic journals. So these are articles that will most likely to be the best studies. So I would look at this set first. If you don't find what you want from this set, I would simply untick the source type option, because Cinahl does have a tendency sometimes to classify journals. For example, Journal of Clinical Nursing is not classed as an academic journal, where it really should be. So just take that with a pinch of salt. So we've got 47 results. So what do we do with them now? So this is a point at which you'd start looking at your results. However, if at this point, just supposing we'd ended up with too many articles, we'd got over 100, what could we do to bring the results down? Well, with this search, supposing I'd got too many results, I would look at these search strings and I would identify the firmest concept, which is probably the hydration one, or possibly also the end of life one, and I would simply rerun one of these strings as words in title. And the way that I would do that is I would just view the results. We'll take the hydration string, for example. So viewing the string places it back in the search box, and I would just simply select words in title. So that will find substantially less than we found where it was searching the whole of the citation. So we've got 12,000 compared with 50,000. However, in this instance, we don't need to do that, so I'm going to remove that. So we could rerun one or more strings as words in title. We could also check our use of truncation, make sure we haven't truncated too early on in a word and brought in words or phrases that we don't want. The other way to narrow a search is to add in an additional search string. There may be another concept that you haven't already searched for that you could introduce into the search. What about if you have found too few results? Well, here you definitely wouldn't be limiting any of your strings to words in title, because that would be narrowing them too much. Just check any fixed phrase searching you've done. Maybe the speech marks could be taken away. That might broaden the search a little bit. Maybe add in some extra words if you identify any extra words to describe any of the concepts. Or if all else fails, take away the least well-defined concept. So in this case, if I had to take away one of these concepts, it would be the comfort, discomfort, distress string, I think, because these words were a little bit more difficult to pin down, not quite so obvious as the other two search strings. So I could simply remove that string and more results would come into the final results. Ways that I would not refine my search by would be, I would not, so this is not good practice, I would not be limiting my results to articles found in full text. This isn't necessary because there are embedded DOI links within some of these citations. So if I just go back to my 64 results, I'm looking at which have full text. Now, if I were to narrow this, I now only have 8. So, and basically what that's done is it's taken away a lot of very up-to-date articles. So anything that a publisher has embargoed, these tend to be the best, most up-to-date articles I might not be able to view. So that's obviously not recommended practice, so I'm going to untick that. We'll go back to our 64 results. The other thing that I wouldn't do is I would not use the geography option. So there is a tendency to think this might be a good idea if you're getting a lot of results that are non-UK articles. It might be quite tempting to limit to the ones that are in the UK and Ireland. Not a good idea because these will actually limit you to articles published in the UK and Ireland. They won't necessarily be about the UK and Ireland. They might still be international papers. And it may be that some international papers can be used anyway. For example, if they're from Australia or New Zealand, it might be perfectly okay to be looking at these. So basically, you are now at the point where you're thinking about making your final selection of articles. So this is a point where you might be thinking back to your PICO and PEO statements, if you've used them, to make sure that you're finding articles about the right population, the right intervention, the right setting, the correct outcomes. You need to check the citation for details about the article. Double check whether it really is primary research. Look at the abstract for details about how the research was conducted, the methodologies used, research methods, etc. The subject headings here are quite useful. This is talking about questionnaires, purposive samples. This is looking like it's possibly quantitative. I have to look at it in more detail first. So when you're going through the articles, you're thinking about your exclusion criteria. And if you can't really think of what your exclusion criteria might be, look at an article, and if there's something wrong with the article, if there's a reason why you wouldn't use it, that reason becomes your exclusion criteria. So you may have lots of different exclusion criteria. Some of the articles are just may simply not be relevant, even though the database has found the papers for you and the searches work correctly. You might find that half the papers you can just discard because they are simply not relevant. So basically, the database can get you down to the nearest whatever, in this case 64, usually looking at between not more than 100 articles, maybe not less than 20, depending on how many you've got to select. But basically, you have to do the evaluation. The database can't do that. And as I say, you are harking back to your PICO and PEO statements to help you with this part of the process. So that's an overview of how to do an advanced search in Cinahl, using search terms, search techniques, using the limit options, and then thinking about how you're going to make your final selection.